Good day. Welcome. This is 2A, and this is the morning meeting. Sean, Dan, and I will walk you through the day as if we worked at a network news division where we preview the day, kick things around, and then we'd love to have your questions, all of them imbued with the very beautiful peace, love, and understanding that pervades the platform. Thank you for joining. If you're here on the 2A platform, darn it, raise your hand, particularly if you've never raised your hand before, and get in on the conversation. We call them conversations like no other. If you're watching on X or YouTube, don't raise your hand, and don't, Dan, tell them.
Yeah, do
Please.
smack in the chat.
Don't put smack in the chat. Don't put smack in the chat. A very big day today. There's this horrible plane crash, of course, a London-bound plane in India. That's getting a lot of coverage. And there could be an Israel strike on Iran today. I'm amazed at how little coverage it's getting. I'm amazed. We talked about it last night on Two-Way Tonight, but we'll talk about that here. And of course, we want your questions. And also, we'd like to crowdsource reporting. So if you're watching in Tehran, please come on this Two-Way platform and tell us what you're seeing this morning there. All right. The president today is bill signing ceremony at 11, signing executive orders at 3:30. First is open press. 3:30 is closed press. And then he's hosting the congressional picnic tonight. Rand Paul says he was disinvited. But we'll see who shows up for that. He's also meeting at some point today on the very important reconciliation process with Senator Thune, his second meeting with the Republican Senate leader this week that we know about, and the finance chair, Mike Crapo. The vice president, we don't know what he's doing today, but as we often say, he does stuff without us knowing. So who knows what he's doing? For instance, according to the Associated Press, on Tuesday, he went and hung out with the Murdochs in Montana, flew to Montana and back to hang out with the Murdochs. We don't know what he did there, why he went, who else was there. We know some of the other people who were there, according to the AP. But anyway, the vice president, as they used to say about Barack Obama, the bear is off the leash. Who knows what he's doing? Pete Hegseth.
Can I just ask this? You're the guy who's been around on the other side of this for a while. The idea to me that the vice president of the United States goes to Andrews Air Force Base, which he can't just do, like he's not hailing an Uber. He goes to Andrews, he gets on a big plane that says United States of America. He flies, he lands in Montana. It's not, again, like big plane lands in Montana. Somebody says, hey, that says United States Air Force of America on it. How does no one pick this up?
Well, they did. I mean, the AP picked it up. They saw the plane in Montana and they wrote a story. But I'm virtually certain the vice president does stuff we don't know about. Now, what's hilarious?
I know that.
What's hilarious to me is most of the vice presidents I've ever covered, most, not all, begged for coverage. Like they would get frustrated that there was nothing they could do to get coverage. This vice president could get more coverage for a variety of reasons, but most days he chooses not to, no matter what he's doing. And he can go out and back a couple thousand miles each way. And except for the fact that someone had spotted the plane, no one would have known. And not really sure exactly how often he does that. But as I said, my strong sense he does it a fair amount. I just don't think it's good public policy. Forget the death watch. Let's use the phrase the pool uses. Imagine if he'd had a heart attack in Montana. Like, then what? He's the vice president of the United States. He's a duly elected constitutional officer, but that's the way they're doing it, and I hope they change. Pete Hegseth is on the Hill again today, third committee in 2 days before House Armed Services, along with Sean's friend, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane. Sean,
who made some news, by the way, the other day.
Yeah, he did make quite a bit. You and General Kane have known each other for quite some time, serving on a committee together.
We did. We both served on the White House Commission on White House Fellows for a while, and at that point, he was just Dan.
Yeah.
Now he's Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Let's hear your
call me Mr. Chairman.
Let's hear your imitation of President Trump saying the general with his nickname.
So I land in Baghdad. I go down the stairs. They said, who's in charge? They said, sir, Raising Cane. I said, what? Your name is what? He says, Cane, sir. He said, what? I said, Raising Cane. He said, Raisin? Are you kidding me? Raising Cane, that's your name? He said, yes, sir. How long do you need to take over the Taliban? 16 seconds, sir. I said, 16 seconds? They said it's going to take 5 months. Raising Cane, you're in charge.
And thus, history is spoken. Thank you, Sean.
Didn't do it justice. I didn't. On the spot.
It's good. It's good. It's solid. Also on Capitol Hill today, as House and Senator both in, and again, the Senate laser focused on the Rubik's Cube of reconciliation. Scott Bessent, another day of testimony before Senate Finance on the president's budget and on the Department of Treasury and tax reform. Also at 10 o'clock, this is interesting. We'll talk about this in a moment. J.D. Pritzker, Tim Waltz, and Kathy Hochul are appearing before the House Oversight Committee. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle themselves. We'll talk about that. And as I said, the congressional picnic tonight at the White House at 7. Supreme Court is expected to issue opinions today. It's getting towards the end of the term, so we could get some big ones. And at 4:30 Eastern, U.S. District Court Judge Breyer, Northern District of California, is hearing motions in court in the landmark case Newsom versus Trump, where California is saying the president is not using the National Guard properly.
Can I just real quick on this? And we'll obviously talk about it tomorrow because of the impacts it'll have going forward. Based on his previous rulings on this exact kind of subject, as well as I think the merits, he's going to rule in Trump's favor. And when he does, I will go back to the point that this has been a cataclysmic mistake on how the Democrats have handled this, because both messaging wise, they've screwed this up. And now you will see them messed up the strategic, like they've now blown the court card. And that actually hurts them big time going forward. Legally, it gives the president a talking point that he didn't have otherwise. This will be a self-inflicted wound.
I never predict judges, justices, or juries, except when I do, and I agree with you, Sean. I don't even care who the judge is. This case seems like not a great move.
And the White House, I mentioned this the other day. I will tell you, there are times, Trump won being the example where over and over again we sort of got off on the wrong foot. We messaged things improperly. We cited this time they came out crystal clear. The Marines are there to guard ICE agents and federal assets. They are rock solid on their arguments here. And I think the judge is going to side with them for obvious reasons because they have an obligation to protect those. But they knew exactly what they were doing this time. And that level of foresight and planning is going to pay off.
Yeah. Final debate in the New York City mayoral races tonight at 7 o'clock, and we'll talk about that as well. Again, if you want in on the conversation, please, I'd urge you to raise your hand if you're in the two-way platform. All right. The president flew to Camp David, met with his national security team. I know we live in a superficial world, and Gavin Newsom's hair and Donald Trump's gait are more important than possible World War III. I know that's true. But nonetheless, I remain stunned at how little coverage there is. We talked about this on Two-Way Tonight last night. I mean, the president is all but saying that Iran is about to be attacked by Israel. Here he is last night talking about that.
Can you provide an update on Iran? We're hearing reports that U.S. personnel are being moved out of the region within striking distance.
Well, they are being moved out because it could be a dangerous place, and we'll see what happens. But we've given notice to move out, and we'll see what happens.
Is there anything that can be done to dial the temperature down in the region?
They can't have a nuclear weapon. Very simply. They can't have a nuclear weapon. We're not going to allow that.
Now, in earlier comments at the White House, the president, if you're a student of Donald Trump, again, all but said Israel's about to attack Iran. And here, for the latest, is the morning meetings Israel correspondent, Alistair Bunkle. Alistair.
The nuclear talks between America and Iran are continuing. Donald Trump has said that he hasn't got as much confidence as he did that a deal can be done. And so this could be a way of ratcheting up the pressure further. Steve Witkoff, Trump's point man, is due to meet the Iranian foreign minister for another round of those talks in Oman this weekend. The Israelis have never really made any secret about the fact that they think the time is right to attack Iran. They believe that Iran is as weak as it has been for a long time, both politically but also in its military defenses. When the Israelis attacked Iran some months ago, following sort of a round of rocket fire between the countries, they took out a lot of the air defenses. And I think there's a concern within Israel that if they leave it for too long, those air defenses will be rebuilt. But they have a window at the moment to get fighter jets into Iran to attack the nuclear sites.
Alistair, thank you for that report. Please stay safe.
His interview with Minister Reeves coming up, I'm very excited for. I hope we have time to show that.
It'll be Botho and smashing. Brilliant. Sean, there's so many questions I want to ask you about this, but I'll start here. is there any reason to think Israel is not about to attack Iran? You have some Obama and Biden and foreign policy people on Twitter saying this is all a bluff to force them to the negotiating table this weekend with Witkoff. But do you share my view that this is Israel's about to attack Iran?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Why isn't that being being covered more?
Because
I know there's a plane crash. I know Gavin Newsom's hair, but I mean, this is a massive story.
I got to go back to my default, which is I just don't think a lot of reporters understand it or have a grasp of foreign policy. And because to me, they're going to look back and I guarantee you when this thing happens, they're going to talk about a surprise attack. Suddenly did this when it was telegraphed for days. So I can't answer the journalism part. I can answer the strategic part, which is it's going to happen.
Dan, if the president, if Israel strikes Iran, what then? What then? I mean, what happens after that?
Well, I mean, that's the $1 million question. And I think that's what Trump has feared. I mean, I texted you guys on Sunday at the Camp David that I thought they probably were meeting about attacking Iran. And of course, it's also out that he talked to Netanyahu Monday, which did not get any coverage on Monday or Tuesday. And I think yesterday was the first time it was reported. Look, I think the question is, do American assets and personnel get hit in retaliation? And then what happens if a barracks is blown up and U.S. soldiers are killed? The pressure on President Trump to respond is going to be immense. To what extent do we aid Israel? Because I'm sure they're going to do something to try to get back at Israel. And if there's severe damage in Israel, does Israel sit quietly and say, all right, we took out your nuclear bunker, but you blew up a few apartment buildings and we're going to call it even? This is what everyone from Obama to Trump to Biden has feared. A war breaks out and we are stuck in the middle with, obviously on behalf of Israel, and where it goes from there, we'll see.
Well, Dan, to your point about on behalf of Israel, the second that they strike any U.S. asset, then it's not about Israel. It's about us, and we must retaliate. And I think if that gives us the excuse to put an end to all of their capabilities, then so be it. But look, this goes back to the bigger, broader point about getting a deal with Iran. They have made it very clear we're a sworn enemy. The idea that anyone thinks that you can get a deal with Iran is nuts. And so, as painful as this may be the logical extension of what has to happen next in order to get to a finality.
I think
your friends Trump and Witkoff don't think it's nuts. They're trying to negotiate a deal.
Yeah, and by the way, that just on that point, they have ping ponged between you can keep a little bit of nuclear material to you can have no nuclear material. So even Trump's team seems to be all over the place.
Well, there's a difference. First of all, just to be clear, I don't believe you can have any. These guys can't be trusted. So the idea that you can use it for commercial purposes is crazy in my mind, as if that's what they're going to contain it to.
By the way, we put that in writing to them.
Yeah.
And not there.
Yeah. All right. Let me ask you this. Well, if Israel attacks, and again, it might be dependent on what the nature of it is, what do the Saudis, the Russians, the Chinese say? Anybody have any idea on those three?
It's interesting. If you're China, I think you kind of like the fact we get bogged down potentially in the Middle East again. I mean, it lets Taiwan, it lets you kind of continue your march around the world, which started with us in Iraq. Mark, I think the other interesting question is it splits the Democrats and Republicans. Like there is no unity in either party on this issue, which would be remarkable heading into primary season, the fall, like everything, because there's all this talk about MAGA completely split, some trying to convince Trump to bomb, some Tucker Carlson saying, don't do it. It's crazy.
So the answer to your question, in my opinion, is it depends. So this is like when Ukraine did that drone strike on Russia, and I said right afterwards, Putin's not going to sit back and just allow that to happen, and he didn't. Iran is not going to allow Israel to strike with impunity and not retaliate. That's just not in their DNA. So the question becomes what's the battle damage assessment from what Israel does? Do they hit just military and government targets? And then two, what is Iran's response to Israel? Do they take it over the top? Do they bring in U.S. assets in their targeting sequence? So the answer to everything in terms of not just us, but the rest of the world is it depends, because how this thing escalates between the two of them will depend on how everyone else reacts.
Well, and I think those monarchs in the region that are friendly to us will face huge domestic pressure to likely side with the, kind of the uprising, even though they hate the Iranians, and that could create instability with those monarchs.
Yeah. All right. We'll keep talking about this. And again, welcome questions on it when we open up the floor here. Dan, don't know if there'll be another curfew tonight. And again, this is not a curfew of all of Los Angeles or all of Southern California or all of California. It's a curfew of a very small part of Los Angeles. Where do you think we are in terms of protests and deportations?
So I think the Democratic Party is starting to kind of go off the cliff here a little bit right now. I mean, there's the issue of Los Angeles and how safe it is right now. And thankfully, it appears that the violence is not getting worse, right? So it appears to be lessening a little. So that's good news. The problem is the party is so unhinged over this that now you are beginning to get people calling for, if we get power back in 26 or 28, they want to cut the budget of ICE. You're starting to hear talk of getting rid of ICE again. And it's raising the fact that there is a portion of our base that does not believe there is an immigration problem. And that is horrifying because their voices are getting louder. And the counter argument is in private, they're freaking out. But Hakeem and Schumer and the people that would normally try to, provide some cover for the moderates and put a lid on the progressives are silent, as are the 28ers. And so the loudest voices are beginning to kind of enter the mainstream conversation, and it is all there's no immigration problem.
Yeah.
And that is horrifying.
Well, there's an immigration problem from the point of view. It's called Donald Trump.
Right. Yeah. Right. Sorry.
Sean, what do you anticipate today with your Ouija board and crystal ball?
So I think we'll see. I mean, the question is, do they, there's a lot of talk on the left about ratcheting it up. We need to keep the momentum going. It's now spreading beyond LA. Even in downtown Providence, Rhode Island, that there are protests. So if this thing continues to climb, I think that's going to be a bigger, broader problem for the Democrats, because you either have to be with them or against them. And then that's the hard part, is how do you side with your base? I've talked to actually some sort of mainline Democrats and asked them the same question. They feel like they're trapped because they know where their base is. They know what they have to say, but they don't want to look like they're out of touch reality. So I think, and then the court case, I think, depending on if there's a quick decision from the bench today, could make a lot of the news. And if it's against Gavin, how does the crowd react? I mean, there's a lot of X factors today. Yeah. And I think the question is, the problem that I see overarching is, to Dan's point, no one's taking the temperature down. They're ratcheting it up. Gavin Newsom is taking the rhetoric up. He's going to court. The court's going to decide. And I'm not arguing one way or another that that's what he should do or not, but I'm just saying, until somebody says, hey, this isn't helping us, it's not going to stop. Or, as we like to say, overcome by events, meaning something, if we go to war, if this war that we just talked about were to break out, or the skirmish, what have you, one event can overtake another. I mean, think about Abrego Garcia. On Friday night, the guy comes back to the United States, and I thought that's all we'd be talking about Monday. And the next thing you know, we're talking about riots in LA. So if another big event happens that overtakes this, I think it starts to push it back.
Well,
like say World War III.
Yeah.
That would probably get attention.
I think part of the problem, though, too, Sean, is what is the base animated about? Is it just that Trump is doing this? Is it like a states' rights issue?
Let me stop you there.
This is part of the problem.
Yeah, there are protests on Saturday, right, all over the country, and they're protesting lots about Donald Trump and their view of him as a wannabe dictator. But what are the protests about? Are the protests about the use of the military? Are the protests about deporting anyone? Are the protests about deporting seamstresses? What are they protesting?
Well, and some of the protests, it's my understanding, are about the parade itself, which I think is the most silly thing.
By the way, I'm glad you brought that up, Dan. I was going to wait till tomorrow to touch on this. But I do think that this is where this thing goes off the hinges. If these guys, there's a celebration that is going to be on Saturday, and who knows now because of weather how it's going to, the DC area looks a little shaky and stormy. But if these guys go over the top and are protesting what appears to be a celebration of the United States Army and its service and sacrifice for the last 250 years, they're going to continue to shred any sense of normalcy that was left in the Democratic Party. I mean, this has gotten insane to protest a celebration. And I get the left and the media being like, if this is about Donald Trump, Trump has played this pitch perfect. It's a parade to celebrate the Army's 250th birthday. He's not talked about his birthday. He's not talked about himself. It's the Democrats who are making everything about him.
So 3 things about me and Gavin Trump. I'm going to make it about me. One is I think
Gavin
he's
Trump?
Gavin Newsom. I think he's less likely to run than everybody else does. 2, I think he's smarter than a lot of other people do. And 3, I don't think what he's doing is helping him even win the nomination. So. I know you do. Here's Gavin Newsom, along lines of what Dan just suggested, turning up the rhetoric in an long interview with the Fox affiliate in L.A. Here he is ragging on the commander-in-chief.
And he also seemed to make up this idea that the National Guard did a great job last night when they weren't here.
They weren't even deployed, and he claimed victory. He's lost it. He hasn't lost a step. And I saw him trip on the steps today. I mean, this is serious. He is not the same person that I dealt with just 4 years ago. And he's incapable now of even a train of thought. He's making things up, and he's putting people's lives at risk. And he's got a band of people that are complicit in this. And that's what's so damn alarming. And we need Congress to step up, and my gosh, do we need the courts.
But
all right, guys, I want you to answer a very focused question. We just went through a 4-year presidency where it was obvious that mentally and physically the commander-in-chief had suffered a decline, including decline of acuity. Gavin Newsom is making the same claim without a doctor validation or without spending a ton of time with the president. Dan, is Gavin Newsom's analysis correct? Are we seeing someone with severe acuity decline? Yes or no?
I'm not going to answer it that way, because he is trolling the way Trump trolls people. This is about just punching and having some fun, mocking him. He's using Trump's tactics.
Dan.
No. I'm not going to get
Why
into
not?
that.
Is Donald Trump
Look, you could
exhibiting
argue that,
signs of decline?
Right. Okay, you could argue that for the last few years when Trump speaks, he has confused names very often. He confuses dates. So if you're going to go on that standard, sure, of course. And the fact that Trump turned 79, Newsom's going to have some fun. He's getting near 80. He's getting old. So sure.
Okay.
He's had signs.
Dan's a yes. Sean, Dan hedged a little bit because I asked about severe acuity decline. Dan said he's exhibiting some stuff. Sean, is the president exhibiting signs of acuity decline?
Absolutely not. I mean, that may be look, I got to say, the height of hypocrisy for Gavin Newsom, who covered up for Joe Biden, to now try to make the claim that Trump, to use their favorite phrase, without evidence. This president is up at like a ridiculous hour every morning, working through the end of the night. His team is.
I hear he's running circles around the staff.
Yeah, and by the way, I can actually say physically that's true. Like, you need a nap if you work for that guy. And look,
he doesn't run anyway.
Sean, what about when he tripped? What about when he tripped on the steps of Air Force One? Did that give you pause?
Oh my God! He's clearly. I hope he gets some help, because I mean that shows.
Let me ask you this: look, does Newsom doing that piss Trump off?
Probably, but the point is,
that's it. It's all about.
I think the difference is that Trump knows that, and that's the difference, is that he's well aware of what Gavin is doing. And so, but also, like I said, of all people, that just doesn't make, like, you can't have been the biggest defender of Biden and lied to the American people the way that he did, and now suddenly be like, I saw President Trump trip on a stair.
Yes, you can. Yes,
you can. Sure you can.
Yes, you can.
Sure you can. Just like Trump says one thing, and the next day he completely takes a different stance. I mean, Sean, you can't have something. There have been events recently where Trump has not been on the side of law enforcement. I'll leave it at that. Then he's like, I'm Mr. Law Enforcement. Politics do this all the time. Newsom
okay,
doing what everyone
yeah.
has begged the party to do.
So
Use
let me
humor, mock him, make fun of him. The fact that he called him out tripping on the steps, that incenses Trump. It incenses him.
To your point, absolutely, one can do that. That's what politics is all about, right? They flip on each other. But my point isn't more that you can't actually do it, but more that I think the average person remembers he defended Joe Biden more than Kamala Harris did. And so there is a bit of it's sort of like when Karine Jean-Pierre says that Joe Biden ran circles around here. It doesn't pass the laugh test.
You mentioned Kamala Harris. Here's a Politico headline over a story about Kamala Harris, a story that is as short and piquant as the Pisco Sours at L'Oreal Plaza. Not a very long story, but amongst the things it says is that she still has her deadline to decide whether to run for governor by the end of the summer. Her advisors say that Trump going after California now mitigates the concern that if she ran for governor, California would be targeted because California is going to be targeted anyway. Her supporters anonymously in the story say she's a good candidate for governor because she's the only one who stood up to Trump. I say that without commentary because there's some humor to that. But Dan, do the current events in California make it more likely that Kamala Harris will run and win the governorship?
I don't know if it makes her more likely to run. I don't think it makes her more likely to win. And the reason is she is not standing up. She is not tip of the spear. Like, this was a golden opportunity for her to kind of step forward and try to get into the mix, showing some kind of moxie and nimbleness but she hasn't. And, there was a story we were joking before we went on air that she tried to call Gavin Newsom. He didn't answer. She left a voicemail and she hasn't heard back, which is because I think Newsom's like, I'm not sharing the stage with you. Like, where have you been on all of this? Like, I am out there fighting. And by the way, we may run against each other in 2028. I think other candidates with each passing day think she's small. All the things we always talk about. She's cautious, like all of this stuff. And at the end of the day, who are you? Are you a moderate? Are you a progressive? Are you saying that you don't support the immigration reform? Like, I just think her silence is killing her.
Sean, if you were her advisor, would you tell her this creates an opening for her?
If I were her advisor, I'd say, ma'am, I got to go. I don't. Yes and no. I guess it creates an opening, but this idea that California was going to be targeted because she ran, it's almost like she's looking for an excuse.
Yes.
I get it. I'm like, who? It's so, honestly, like, if you were in a meeting and you said, I just don't know because California is going to be targeting, I'd be like, this is your thought process? I got to go.
Okay. 3 governors mentioned before, at least 2 of whom have presidential aspirations, Pritzker and Walz, testifying on immigration, sanctuary states, sanctuary cities today. Sean, if you were advising, and don't give their jokey answer, if I were advising, I'd quit. If you were advising them, what soundbite do they want? What message, what would you want to be on the evening news if you're J.B. Pritzker in this hearing?
Something about due process or the Constitution. The Constitution is clear. I'm going to stand for, the principles that America was founded on. I'd want to be above the fray. Don't be about defending, don't be about defending people in the country illegally. Be about the process. Be about the Constitution. Be about what makes America great.
Dan,
safety.
Dan, if you were advising Walz, what would you tell him what to do and not to do in this hearing?
Well, I would add one part, which is that I would absolutely say crime and safety and protecting our citizens and lawlessness is not okay. You got to get that in the headline to establish that you're not okay with violence and burning cars and all of that. And then to your point, Sean, kind of states' rights and we're in control. I think what you can't do is get into where Sean was just going, defending that we shouldn't have that immigrants should be allowed to stay, that even if they're illegal and they're criminals, like, get into the weeds of defending people that it's almost indefensible to defend. You could try to posit we need to have a solution to deal with the 20 million people that are here and kind of pivot to that. But I think you have to have law and order. You cannot get into the weeds of defending the bad hombres and more broadly. And you also, I think, want to establish that the president does have the right to defend federal personnel. Don't get into that trap of saying he or she doesn't.
Right. All right, we're going to do 3 topics. Boom, 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 real quick, then get to your questions. Please raise your hand.
By the way, Mark, AOC
Yes,
is on that committee. Watch her today.
Yes, sir. Good point.
And if she
All right.
runs for governor and Hochul's there, not governor, but senator, sorry.
105A, David Hogg will no longer be the co-chair, vice chair of the DNC through various machinations of things. Dan, if you were asked by the chairman, Mr. Martin, what is the lesson that he should take away from this experience? What would you say the lesson he should take away is?
He's got to start exhibiting leadership.
That's it.
He just looks so small and helpless. And, right now, what the problem is, the base is screaming to fight everything and blow the system up. And he is silent on this, as is Jeffries, as is Schumer, on all of this, right? Hogg was primarying people. The reforms, the fight immigration, fight Trump, stop everything. You just keep reading these stories, whether it's members of Congress about ICE being abolished or Ken Martin. What do I do? The base wants us to fight everything and we feel forced. You sound like a wimp. Who is the adult, the leader? Challenge him. If you can't do it, then resign. But this, we're helpless and the tail is wagging the dog is just setting us back.
Yeah.
The idea, look, outside of Donna Brazil, I don't think anyone except Mark, maybe Dan actually, could name a vice chair of the DNC. It's just,
I could, but
that's why I said you, Dan, because no one cares. And the idea that David Hogg has ellipsed him, and by the way, isn't even going to run again. I even figured David Hogg was identified as whatever balance they needed on the DNC and that they would allow that to work. So it says a lot that he actually believes that he can have a bigger platform outside the DNC. But I agree with Dan 100%. Ken Martin, simply put, should understand his role, his lane, and say, I'm going to build the best mechanical operation and the best infrastructure possible. This is how I'm going to do it. Da, 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 da. He is. He whines about David Hogg on conference calls as opposed to go out there and lead, put a plan together, execute on it, and go sell it. But the idea of sitting around and whining, off on the House side of the Capitol is a bit beneath the chair of the DNC.
I know people can multitask well. I have to say, I never read the chat, but I do glance at it on occasion. You people are nuts. They just keep the smack out of the chat. I don't know how many times I have to say it. My goodness.
Now I have
goodness.
Now I'm actually drawn.
I want to go look at this now.
All right. Unlike there's much to admire.
Glasses.
2 more topics quickly. There's much to admire about Arthur Fonzarelli, but his unwillingness to admit when he's wrong is not a great role model. Let's be honest. Here are 2 things I might be wrong. I might have been wrong about. I now think it's possible that reconciliation will not pass the House and the Senate. And I now think it's possible that Andrew Cuomo could lose this primary for mayor of New York. I'm not predicting either, but they're both possible. So let's start with reconciliation. Sean.
I'm 1 week. I am staying strong.
Sean, it will pass. Okay.
100%.
Okay. What will happen quickly, because we got to get to folks. What will happen if the Senate makes significant changes?
Mark, can we go back to the tape months ago? And I used the C word. What's the C word?
Conference committee.
Conference committee.
Sean, there's not going to be a conference committee. You are drugs. There's not
Call
going to be a
back,
conference
everybody.
committee.
Audra. You know what? Can you guys please clip this?
There will not be a conference committee.
Okay.
There just won't. There won't.
Okay.
All right. That's if your solution to the way they're going to pass the bill is there's going to be a formal conference committee.
No. Oh,
and it's not-
slight
By the
hint.
way, for everyone watching, before the show, this conversation of what formal constitutes, these 2 went back and forth day after day.
No.
Sean, if you're saying there'll be negotiations, there will be. That's not that's not a conference.
How this works?
That's not a conference. Dan, are you more bearish or you're still super bullish? It has to pass, so it will.
Probably this sounds like every lobbying shop right now in town.
Yeah.
I still am bullish it will pass because as much as the children are going to fight, when dad steps in with the hammer, he is just going to say whatever. It has to get done.
Yes.
I still don't think they go to war with him.
And just to be clear, there's very few people who might vote no. Very few Republicans. There are, 95% are yes, no matter what's in it. But there's some hitches. There's some hitches.
James
it's all
Blair,
But I do go with you in that I think the Senate may get rolled by the House because the SALT guys have nothing to lose if this goes down. Because Trump cannot flex on them in a primary.
The House of Lords might have to eat it, which they never do.
But this is my point, though. If these guys lower SALT to 30 grand and put it back over, they're not going to revote. They will have to go and sort this out. And it won't be your formal committee, but it will be a technical conference committee where they'll go.
There'll be nothing technical about it. Don't say technical. There's no difference between technical and formal.
Okay, then fine. That's what they'll do.
They'll discuss it. I agree. They'll discuss it. All right. Lastly, New York City is got the early voting's about to start in the mayor's race. There have been some ridiculous polls in the last couple of days showing the race closer between Andrew Cuomo and a very young socialist. Dan, what's that guy's name?
Begins with Zahir.
Yeah. All right. We'll see his name in a moment.
Yes.
The final Cuomo ad, I think it's the final ad, before early voting begins, for the first time from the campaign itself, mentions Andrew Cuomo's sole plausible challenger. Here is that new commercial.
LA's in chaos. Imagine it's Times Square. Trump's coming for New York. Who do you think can stop him? Zoran Mamdani's a 33-year-old dangerously inexperienced legislator who's passed just 3 bills with a staff you can fit inside a New York elevator. New York already has a crisis of affordability and safety. We need someone ready to roll. Andrew Cuomo's managed a state and managed crises, from COVID to Trump. Trump's at the city gates. We need someone experienced to slam them shut. Paid for by Cuomo for NYC Inc.
Now, I've lived here for 2 decades and I've never seen the city gates, but I'm sure they're spectacular. Dan, what do you, besides the fact that he's obviously playing off of the current events of the Los Angeles situation, what do you make of that ad as it might speak to the Team Cuomo's confidence that they're going to win?
Well, I think it says they don't have confidence and they know the guy's surging. I mean, they are, as much as they're trying to do the anti-Trump, it is more a shot that this, he's a young 33-year-old with very little governing experience. And is he really going to take over the big city when Trump is, starting to go into blue cities to do what he wants to do? So I think the question is just, can Cuomo hold on? Clearly this guy is surging. The question is, can he pass him? Do progressives all rally around this guy, or do they remain, do a couple candidates get 9% and 10% and kind of just, he can't get there? I don't see how he wins a general election.
Yeah,
I mean,
so a couple things. Cuomo will be on the general election ballot, as will be Mayor Adams, as will a Republican. So even if he wins the primary, he's not necessarily going to be the mayor. The other thing is, we talk here about polls. What's a good poll? What's a bad poll? One of the polls that shows this guy competitive with Andrew Cuomo, they didn't include people from Staten Island. Okay, so I mean, you gotta read the polls a little carefully. All right. Let's go to your questions as always.
Hello.
You usually pass on this topic.
But I actually did a little homework on this.
All right.
So you know what? I come to my understanding is Bloomberg dropped in 5 million yesterday. There's an IE that's going up that's got a ton of money in it. The IE money is all they're worried about the independent expenditure stuff. These guys, there's a lot of money coming in to rescue Cuomo at the end. I think there's a lot of concern about this guy surging. There's a lot of money that's going to come in from the outside to help Cuomo because they can't stand the thought of this guy winning. By the way, I will just say this on that ad, for as experienced as I would assume Cuomo's team, I thought they missed the mark. Going after him for inexperience was right on. And then they're like, he's only passed 3 bills. His staff can fit in an elevator. No one gives a shit anything about that. It was, to me, just continue on.
But the problem is they can't in a TV ad go after him for being too left wing because
no. I would have stayed on the theme of inexperience. He's 33 years old. He hasn't done anything. Why bring up the number of bills?
By the way, Sean,
they're saying he's not accomplished. He's not up to the job.
I think you could have done it in a much more compelling way than how many staff fit in an elevator.
I hear you.
Sean, if Bloomberg put $5 million in, I'm not sure that's going to help Andrew Cuomo. I think the progressives will go nuts about this. It just fires up the other side.
I will tell you this, and I've done no reporting on it yet, but I will. The business community got Adams elected. And they did it in a very quiet way, including going to their employees and basically saying to them, everybody should vote for Eric Adams. The business community is about to mobilize for Andrew Cuomo, and they'll do it in a quiet way. Sean, has anyone reported that Bloomberg put in $5 million, or that's your own unique reporting?
That's my unique reporting from sources
John
close.
was here the other day, so it's possible.
But and also, I do know that on the IE front, I know people, like, I'm aware of.
All right.
Some of the folks.
Hey, Michael, Google around and see if anybody else has that on Twitter or anywhere else, or make that a
Can you imagine if I'm breaking New York City?
I love it.
I know. We'll be very happy. Maureen, welcome in. Thank you for joining. May we call you Mo?
No, you may not.
Okay, just checking. For that, Dan slipped up and did that. Maureen, welcome in. Thank you.
I like the sense of conviction in which you said that too.
Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind, and thank you for being part of 2A. Maureen.
I live in Los Angeles, but I grew up in Chicago, and I worked for the Democrat, or I did all kinds of volunteer work and everything, and worked on one paid campaign for the Chicago Machine back in the day. But I'm a retired FBI agent. I'm conservative now, and I've been watching the show since day one, and you guys really helped me. You really helped usher me and a lot of other people through this last election. I really felt I had a holistic understanding of what everyone was feeling. I loved everyone's different views. So thank you for that. And I love the banter going back and forth. And I was very glad when Dan got added to the show.
Maureen, thank you for all that. What did you do for the Bureau?
Special agent with the FBI, working gangs and narcotics in Los Angeles for 25 years.
Wow. Have you ever been able to find good deep dish pizza out there?
I don't do deep dish pizza. I'm a South Sider like the Pope. We do that cracker thin crust and the tavern style. That's the only kind. Deep dish pizza is just like a giant glob of cholesterol.
Did you see the Pope put a White Sox hat on yesterday?
Of course I did, Dan. And I'm going to get myself one of those White Sox gold and white jerseys with the Pope on the back.
Maureen, this show's been on many months, but we've never had a retired FBI agent come on and say this phrase, "I'm a South Sider like the Pope." So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you for creating that history.
As an aside, since you were talking about David Hogg, I knew him when he was a baby. His father is also a retired FBI agent. We were very close friends and colleagues, and he passed away not that long ago. And his service was actually the day before David got named as the vice chair.
Wow. Didn't know any of that. That's interesting. Maureen, I don't know what you want to talk about, but I'd love to ask you about how you're experiencing the situation going on with the ICE agents and the introduction of active duty and National Guard. How do you see that?
Well, first of all, it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. I have many, many sources. Still, I come from my whole family is pretty much first responders, retired first responders, and on-the-job first responders, and iron workers, which is a whole different story. But my understanding is that that raid that took place, the initial one that sparked these protests or these riots, it was 118 people were arrested or whatever. To put a case like that together, you can't just do it. You can't just do it in 15 minutes. I've done it before. I worked large-scale gangs in Los Angeles for many, many years. I worked with ICE. I worked with all these agencies and entities many, many times because I was in the criminal division my whole career, and I loved it. To put a case like that together takes a long time. It's not just like they're showing up, rounding up people. They make it sound like there's dudes in creepy vans trolling down the street looking for people that don't belong, which would be terrible if it was true. I just want to know, how is it humanly possible that has been put out, that it was actually a set up and well-orchestrated event, and how is it being represented by Karen Bass over and over and over, and Gavin Newsom, that this was just an impromptu thing where they just rolled up and decided to wrap everybody up? I mean, they're fomenting the fires, and this constant mantra of blaming everything on Trump. Nobody cares. Stop talking. And why does she have to have a giant grin on her face every time she opens her mouth? We have zero confidence. The reason most of us believe that, ICE should, or that the Marines should be there, National Guard should be there, everyone should be there, is because we saw what you guys let happen during the fires. And we're up to here with all of it. We have zero confidence in your ability to solve anything. So stop running your mouth. Stop blaming everything that happens on planet Earth on Trump and get the job done. We need mission-focused people.
Maureen, thank you. Sean and then Dan.
Agree. Can I just ask Maureen, what do you think of the current leadership of the FBI and the direction that it's headed?
Well, I think I'm hopeful. And, I've gone through a lot of change. I started in 1991. And so we went through, I saw what Mueller did. I think Mueller did a lot of damage, but he did some good stuff too. Comey, I think, what Comey did, it's going to be hard to come back from. I think in some way it may have been an overcorrection. Although I think Dan Bongino is probably a nice person, it's hard to walk back from all the things he said, in my opinion. I think it's better to have someone that at least appears to be more of a centrist. I think both Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are seeing now the great work that the FBI does. They do unbelievable work. And I've been in the big command centers over and over, and I worked the squad where we had the SWAT team, the evidence response team, and the WMD, everybody in between. And when stuff really hit the fan, like 9/11, they were all up in our space watching everything and learning about what was happening. So with regard to that, I think they're just, there have been times where I've just had, goosebumps for hours with the phenomenal work and dedication and mission focus that the FBI has. And there are people that I've worked for or worked with for 15, 20 years. I don't even know what their politics are, and I don't care what their politics are. Get the job done. So I think they're getting the job done. I think they're getting stuff done. But I think in particularly Bongino's case, he came from an organization that works 2 or 3 violations, which good for them. I totally respect the work that the Secret Service does. But to all of a sudden be the deputy director whose sole mission is to advise the director on how every cog in the wheel of the FBI works, I think is going to be a big challenge. But I do see that they are both in awe with the work that the Bureau does, separate and apart from the mistakes that were made and anything to do with headquarters. We all hate headquarters. All of us hated headquarters. All of us. There's a reason that you have WFO, which is the Washington Field Office, separate from headquarters, so that headquarters can deal with the Hill and everything to do with politics, and WFO can do cases. The problem is those are the only two that WFO is the only place where you can work as an FBI agent, promote without having to uproot your family and move all over the country, because they can just go down the block and come back. Everybody else has to uproot their family. So that causes a big issue, and that was something that Mueller put in place. That's in the weeds, sorry.
By the way, thank you for everything you did, because I know agents and other 1811s don't get the credit and the thanks that they deserve for moving around and all that kind of stuff. So thank you for what you did.
Amen.
Yeah, and thank you for you do dangerous work. You deal with bad people, and thank you. And for the last several years, when people would trash the FBI, I would always say, like, we should applaud. 99% of the FBI is good, honorable people doing great work. In your opinion, you talked about the last the leadership. Do you feel like the FBI is getting what they need, the resources to work with? No. Okay.
No. No, I don't. I mean, I think we need more agents. The push has been for the last 12, 15 years to just get more support and more professional support employees. But I think we need more agents. I think, but I think Kash sees that, and I do like Kash. I like the way When he first got named, or his name first came up as being the potential new director, I just did research and I watched long interviews. I'm not looking at clips to make decisions. That's never what I did. I'm a researcher at heart, and a warrior researcher. And so, I look for the facts. And just like in this whole case in Los Angeles, I'm looking for the facts. I will tell you, having executed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of warrants in Los Angeles, I was so shocked initially to go to the home of a hardcore gangbanger and be like, wow, his mom works at Kaiser Permanente. And so when you hear that people are getting separated from their families and everything, there it is strange. Also, when we consider families of the people that are being deported, etc., every time I arrested someone, I mean, I separated children from their parents a lot when I would show up at a house where they would have guns and cocaine and 2-year-olds walking around with cocaine powder on their hand. I'm calling DCFS. We're getting those kids out of that house. And anytime when you just arrest parents, no matter who you are, you're separating them from their families.
Yeah. Maureen, grateful to you for coming on, and we hope you'll come back, and thank you for being part of Two Way.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Philip, welcome in. Not another new person, hadn't been on before. Grateful to you for being part of it. Tell folks where you are and what's on your mind for Dan and Sean.
Hey, Sean. Hey, Dan. Hey, Mark. Pleasure being on here with you today.
Grateful to have you here.
Time listener. Like Maureen, I've been watching since late August, early September, which I think is about when you guys really started to kick off. I think the reason this platform is so successful is because you get to hear from somebody so articulate and experienced like Maureen. I'm going to have very little to say valuable compared to what she had. So I just want to say that was awesome. Unlike Maureen, I'm not a Sox fan. I'm a Cubs fan and a Roman Catholic.
It's a good year to be a Cubs fan so far.
Seeing that the Pope was a Sox fan was disappointing, but the one how I took that was at least he's not a Cardinals fan.
Oh.
One comment, and then two.
Where do you live in Chicago, Philip?
Live in Chicago, born and raised in southern Wisconsin, though. Voted for Trump in 16, 20, 24. Just ordered my JD Vance 2028 hat the other day from Etsy. So really excited about that. One comment.
You know what? I got to get in on that.
Yeah, it's in the mail.
How is the Trump campaign not selling, or the Vance campaign? Etsy? Someone's making money off that.
I don't think they've started yet. One comment and then one question. Mark, you asked earlier about what the riots or the protests really are about right now with immigration. It's the easiest answer ever, I think. I see them come down Lacker here right in downtown. I live in the middle of the loop, right on the Chicago River. It's about people who despise and loathe the West. And more than just despising and loathing the West, they hate America and they reject any semblance of American exceptionalism. They want to see the rich eaten. They want to see anarchy, chaos, and they want to see the world burn, in my humble opinion. Off-topic question for Dan and Sean. And Dan, I see you, and I know you don't completely agree with that. And I don't always disagree with you, to be honest. I really appreciate your perspective and love hearing your insight. It's super valuable for somebody like me. One question kind of off-topic, and it goes to maybe stealing your opponent's playbook and strategy. I feel like Trump has a ton of momentum right now. Stock market is 1% off all-time highs. Inflation coming down. People, when you look at is the U.S. headed in the right direction through the polls, it's better than it's been in 20 years. On minimum wage, something that the Democrats always scream them about, current federal minimum wage is $7.25. If you do a quick chat GPT look right now, people that make under $13 an hour, the estimate is 5 to 7% of Americans. Why would the Republicans not come in and say, we're going to raise the minimum wage for the working class, for blue collar workers, to $13 an hour? And then you have that banner saying, we upped minimum wage at the federal level by 70, 80%, and just steal that from the Democrats. Is there any thinking there, Sean, about a few months, 6 months down the road, trying to do something like that?
All right, let's get Dan first on the first point you made about the nature of the protesters, and then Sean on the second question.
Yeah, look, I think, Philip, we will, disagree on this. Whether I agree with our base or not, I do believe they love America. I believe they look at American exceptionalism in a different lens than you do, which is they see us as historically a country of immigrants. And they think to themselves, that is what makes us special, that people from around the world can come here and build a life, whether it's the person who cleans a hotel room or the venture capitalist with a brilliant idea to start Google, right? Like, so to speak. And they see Trump going in a different direction in terms of closing the border, trying to crack down on those who are here illegally. And so it's just a different view, but I don't believe they want anarchy. I don't believe that they hate America. Just like Trump said, America, I want to make it great again because it's changed for the worse. They think he's changing it for the worse, but both want a great country, in my opinion.
Sean.
Let me give you three things, Philip. Number one, I think most Republicans would argue this is a state's issue, not a federal issue. Number two, the percentage of people who are on the minimum wage that's their work is minimal. It's a fact, right? Most people don't actually. That is you have a lot of college and part-time people that are using the minimum wage as a supplement to an income or re-entering the workforce or first timers because of their age. So that's two. And then three is there is a general problem with philosophically and ideologically with the minimum wage. If you took $7 and raised it to 14, then the guy who's making 14 suddenly says, I want 16 or I want 20. Now, I don't know about every place around the country, but I will tell you that at least around Northern Virginia, where I spend most of my time, if you walked through any shopping center, you'll see signs now paying $18 an hour, Amazon saying we'll pay 20. Like part of this is market forces work. I mean, I know from the hospitality area, both in Northern Virginia and throughout New England, people are going over and above because they can't get the workers in. The market forces are working.
But Sean, doesn't it make it easier to do then? And you take the
no, because look, let's say I'm running a business right now and I'm paying Philip $15 an hour, and I go in and I say from now on the minimum wage now goes up to $14.50. You think you're going to say I'm not a minimum wage guy? I now want 20. So now my cost of doing business has risen exponentially. So if I own a restaurant, every dishwasher, every other person went up. Every person who was making 15 now wants 20, 25. And I'm already working on the margins. So I guess my point is the market forces generally are working. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying everybody, but you're creating a problem that now drives small businesses, many of whom work on the margins as it is profit-wise, and put them in an even more precarious situation. And, oh, by the way, the force of that then drives up costs. All these people who are running around saying tariffs are a tax on people, what do you think is going to happen if you increase wages? If you're arguing that tariffs are going to increase wages because it's going to get passed on to the consumer, don't you think raising and doubling the labor cost is going to do the same thing? I mean,
the irony is we're talking about immigration here too, right? Small businesses are the ones that fight the minimum wage. They're the ones who fight raising taxes on the wealthy because a lot of them are incorporated as individuals. And that to Sean's point, their margins are low. It's material. And who are the biggest people against some of the immigration raids? Small businesses. Big companies can pay to hire people and do the vetting and go through all of that. But the landscapers, the restaurant worker, that is who organizes to say, WTF, this stuff kills us.
Dan, I know we're running short on time. I just want to thank you for your answers and perspectives. Same to Sean. Mark, thank you for the opportunity. I love watching you guys.
Phil, thanks for being part of it. Grateful to you. All right, we got to run through a bunch of stuff to end on time here, so we'll go quick. First of all, Maureen, I just got an email from a friend of mine who lives in California who asked if you'd run for governor. So if you'd consider it,
as a Democrat, come back.
You've got at least one vote. Sean, what's on your program tonight?
Big doubleheader. Jim Acosta and Terry Moran are going to talk about leaving journalism. What?
That sounds like a good episode. I look forward to it.
Terry Moran and Jim Acosta, great conversation about transitioning out of journalism to follow your passion. Oh, wait, I got that wrong. Actually, it's a panel day Thursday. Caroline Downey from the National Review, Tony Katz from Indianapolis, and a young woman who I think earlier in the day will be on a show with Dan, and then follow up with us at 6 o'clock. Her name is Batya Ungar-Sargon. She will be joining us after two-way tonight. That's my segue to Dan.
Nice.
Okay. Warn our affiliates, we're going to run a minute over here. Dan, sell your own show, 4 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah.
It's episode 3 of the group chat. Tell folks about it.
Yes, for those who don't know, yep, the group chat. If you haven't checked us out, please do so. The aforementioned Batya is our moderator. Look, the thing that I love about this is, as you look at all of our lovely smiling faces, is we really do represent the spectrum of politics. I consider myself a moderate Democrat. Nina Turner is a very progressive Democrat. Ravi is libertarian. Batya and Emma Jo are both, proud MAGA. Our topic today is going to be Los Angeles. So I'm sure this will be fun and feisty. I'm sure we will all have some interesting things to say. But please check us out, 4 o'clock, live on two-way here. Or if you can't catch us, you can stream it at your convenience.
And again, it's a two-way program. So unlike most group chat shows, you can be in on the conversation. Please join them at 4. At 6 o'clock, I'll be here with two-way tonight with all the day's developments. We might be covering World War III by then. My guests will be Mercedes Schlapp and Brian Wolf, two great guests. So look forward to seeing you there. And then at 7 tonight, Michael Moynihan has his great guest, Douglas Murray, the author of On Democracies and Death Cults, Israel and the Future of Civilization. Join Michael live at 7 o'clock on two-way or on YouTube. And my episode of Next Up will drop later today. And my guests include an expert on national security and civil liberties and all sorts of things. My dad. My dad, for some reason, is just now joining.
He just got in.
Anyway,
he gave you a shout out, Mr. Halperin.
And then Miranda Devine, who interviewed President Trump this week and has a new podcast out, will also join me. So look for that later today. And the three of us will be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time. And because it's Friday, we will have our winners, losers, and what to look for over the weekend.
Already done.
Sean's is already done. I'm
Casual Friday, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Summer
yes.
Friday? Okay.
Summer Friday. And
Friday.
Grateful to everybody who joined. And please send us your best designs for Marine 26 so we can get that thing going and maybe get Mike Bloomberg to put $5 million into her super PAC, i.e. whatever it is. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. We'll see you later.
Yeah.